to see that our clergy have cheering sections tonight. I think it's terrific. It is great to be here at Jack Abrams School, and I thank all of you for being here and all the people that helped make this possible. And it's an honor to get to listen tonight to Legislator Spencer. Doc is truly an American success story, coming from the heart of Appalachia in West Virginia and going on to a great career as an ENT doctor and as a public servant. I've gotten the chance to know him well over the last couple of years, and our sons play JV basketball together at Harbor Fields, and I just wanted to note that they finished their season undefeated tonight, so we're very happy about that. In full disclosure, neither of them played very much, but they had a great time, and they enjoyed themselves. And they are the shortest and the tallest boys on the team, and you can probably guess who belongs to whom. But I'm sure Doc would agree with me that to be here tonight, to achieve what he has done, he has stood, like so many of us, on the shoulders of giants. And I think in part tonight we celebrate those giants like Dr. Martin Luther King, whose life involved a quest for justice and equality and a movement that followed the principles of nonviolence. When his supporters and friends suffered cruel and inhuman treatment, he preached nonviolence and devotion to those principles. And for that, Dr. King was awarded, and it's easy to forget this, the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Even more ironic is the fact that Dr. King's life was cut short by an act of hatred and violence. It's easy to forget or overlook that Dr. King was the victim of gun violence. Yes, Dr. King, who preached nonviolence, was the victim of gun violence. And as great a man as he was, unfortunately, he is another gun violence statistic in the shameful history of gun violence in our country. A shameful history that disproportionately affects African Americans. Consider this. Firearm homicide is the leading cause of death for African Americans ages 11 to 44. African Americans make up approximately 13% of our population, but in 2009 suffered 24% of all firearm deaths and 54% of all firearm homicides. I was struck a month ago or so by a news report in New Orleans. 5 people were standing outside a grocery store on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in New Orleans, and they were wounded in a drive-by shooting shortly after attending the Martin Luther King parade in New Orleans. If we are honest with ourselves, we must acknowledge that the plague of gun violence disproportionately affects neighborhoods where buildings and streets are named after Dr. King. If we are brutally honest with ourselves, we must acknowledge that the building that we are in tonight, the Jack Abrams School, which was once a thriving neighborhood school, was and is in part the victim of gun violence. So tonight, as we celebrate the legacy of giants like Dr. King, let us commit ourselves to supporting President Obama, the person to whom the torch has been passed, in his quest for sensible gun control laws. Let me just conclude with a short story that brings the topic of President Obama and gun control full circle for me, and that happened recently. I was very honored to be invited to the White House to visit President and Mrs. Obama at a reception right before the inauguration, the Thursday before. Now, at the time of that invite, I didn't know that there was going to be a receiving line to meet the President and the First Lady. So I have to tell you, I was a little nervous when I was in the room where President Lincoln's portrait hangs, and I was waiting to meet with the President and the First Lady. And nervous because I didn't know what I was going to say. While I was standing in that line, I thought back to what my 9-year-old son, Aiden, had said to me the day before when I told him that I was going to go to the White House. And let me preface this by saying my son, Aiden, doesn't know there is a world that exists besides Nickelodeon or his Little League schedule. But what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School shook him to the core like it did so many of us. And he said to me, "Tell the president I'm happy he's doing something about guns, Dad." And I laughed at the time, saying to him, "You know, Aiden, I don't think I'm going to actually speak with the president tomorrow." And so when my turn came, I told the president that my son was happy about his efforts on gun control, and he thanked me for that. And I, too, am happy with what the president is doing. In his inaugural address, I think he said it so well, and I quote him when he said, "Our journey is not complete until all of our children, from the streets of Detroit to the hills of Appalachia to the quiet lanes of Newtown, know that they are cared for and cherished and always safe from harm. I submit to you that our journey in this town is not complete until our children on Lowndes Avenue and every road, street, and avenue in our town know that they are cared for, cherished, and always safe from harm." Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's program.